Hello again, Dave.
Ian, how you doing, buddy?
I am great, and we've lured yet another unsuspecting guest into our virtual blanket fort. Jay Lamm, founder of 24 Hours of Lemons and chief perpetrator. Welcome to Apex Adjacent.
Thank you very much.
I'm very excited to have you on. Dave and I have had our own experiences with lemons throughout the years, but also, I think we also want to talk about, and we'll get to this later, kind of just like lemons' place in the larger car enthusiast culture.
It does not have one, so this will be a very short conversation.
I don't think that's true.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Great episode, everybody.
But I kind of want to, I want to start with a game, because I think that is like fitting with the energy of lemons, and we're just going to go right into a game that we play on the show called FMK Cars. So it's based on the classic game of Fuck, Marry, Kill, except it's with cars instead of people, right? And we're going to start at the very beginning of lemons. So I'm going to give you 3 cars. You are going to assign each one FMK, drive it for a day, marry it, it's your daily driver, K, you crush it, right? This one is called $500 my ass. No, seriously, I'll give you $500 and my finest donkey to take this piece of shit off my hands. These were cars that were introduced the same year as 24 Hours of Lemons, 2006.
Ooh, it's a good year for cars, let me just tell you. Yeah, as long as they're not from America, Japan, France, or Germany. Yeah.
Right. Everyone's just riding high on that pre-crash hubris.
Right.
Nothing could possibly go wrong, right?
Houses were skyrocketing in value. There was no way that could be a bubble.
Is the S-Class going to be the first car or the last car in this list?
Oh, I'm so sorry. All right, so the first one will be the Suzuki SX4.
Kill!
I think you might want to hang on to that one.
Yeah, no, actually,
All right. Yeah. Well, just wait. I'll give you all 3, and then you can choose. All right. All right. So the next one is the Dodge Caliber. Hence, I said maybe hang on to that kill.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And then the last one is a curious case: the Saturn Aura.
Huh.
Ah.
Yeah.
The one that everyone always forgets about.
Yeah. I see those every now and then, the little wagon version, right?
Don't call it a Saab.
Yeah.
Boy, that's tough. Well, we know Kill easily. I mean, that's a no-brainer. That's the Caliber hands down. And boy, you really pick 2 that are basically the equivalent. You gotta fuck the Suzuki, I guess, and you gotta just live with the Aura. I mean, only because, actually, I was about to say only because you can still get the Aura fixed. That's not true. So, but I'm just for the sake of moving the game along. That's my vote.
If you had a Suzuki SX4 at your disposal for a day, like, what do you think you'd do?
Oh man, I'd beat the living hell out of that thing. What can you do really with it? Well, first of all, what's under that? I mean, that's just a phone booth body, right? On some sort of prosaic, was it a Kazachi? I don't even know what the Suzukis were. So it's just an Econo box car. I mean, you'd bump it off the rev limiter everywhere you go, and it wouldn't break, and then you'd park it. I mean, you can't really do much with it.
I like that. Just leave the keys in it as you walk away.
It's a Fiat.
It's a what?
It's a Fiat underneath. It's a Fiat Sedici.
Huh.
Or it was at least sold as a Fiat. I don't know if it was a Suzuki design. I'm not sure exactly.
Wow, that's a intersection I did not anticipate happening.
I'm gonna guess that the Fiat was the captive and that it was made by Suzuki, because even Suzuki, no self-respecting Japanese executive would set himself up for badging a Fiat. It could only go the other way.
Right.
I mean, otherwise that's a career-ending mistake right there.
Yeah. Dave, what do you think about that with your Fiat right behind you?
I'm perfectly fine with it. As I'm only, 2 weeks into Fiat ownership, just in general, I think this stuff bounces off of me at this point, especially since, it needs a new engine. But, It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. No, I haven't. I haven't developed the sensitivity for Fiat yet. It just seems weird, and it just seems like 3 or 4 Rubik's cubes duct taped together that I need to try to figure out at this point. So yeah. So I'll be peeling the stickers off of something.
This is useful to know because I've been very tempted to buy one of those things.
Okay.
I mean, as a San Francisco city car, got to be the best, right? But you're saying you've already blown up one motor?
It came to me. I just picked it up used from a good friend of ours from the show, and a lady named Jessie that's gone karting with us and stuff. And she's had it for a while. It hasn't run for a bit, and I just compression tested the cylinders on Saturday. Cylinders 1, 3, and 4 reporting for duty with like over 175 psi. Cylinder 2, dead zero, everybody. So yeah, talk about kind of like the car landscape, or like what. So do you live in San Francisco? Like what kind of like what ideal car? What car do you have? Let's hear it.
Well, all right, yeah. So let's see. I do live in San Francisco, although I've spent pretty much the entire Pandy in Santa Cruz, which is a hell of a lot easier place to be, locked up. And I really am missing a San Francisco urban car. I mean, my daily is a Tesla P90D, which is the size of a Suburban. I mean,
it's so big.
They're so huge. I mean, it's a great car, and I love it to death, but it's almost impossible to live with in the city. I also, and thank God the lease is almost up now, I have a Jaguar XF Sport Brake wagon, which is every bit as big as the Tesla and so awful. God, what a terrible car that is!
Oh man, that's so
I
disappointing to hear.
haven't driven it for a year. It's that bad.
Really?
God, it's noisy. It's had rattles in it. I mean, I got it. It's a lease car, right? So I got it brand new. It's had rattles in it that are uncurable, like cannot be fixed. And I don't understand this. Jaguar, it's like the nameplate. There's nothing else that it has in common with like 3 different generations of Jaguar manufacturing. There's nothing it has in common. How did the rattles make it through? How does that happen? So what else have I got? I got a couple of water-cooled 911s. I've got a Kellison 1960 Kellison J4X.
I don't even know what that is. You're breezing right by that. Yeah.
It's a deservedly forgotten American sports car and race car manufacturer from the 60s. They were
Kellison J5?
J4. It's a J4X. Yeah. You're never going to find a picture because I probably have the only one that exists.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So Kellison made a bunch of bodies. Oh, actually, you know what? That first picture, that's mine pre-resto.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There you go. John Lamm.
Pre-restoration, yeah.
With your AKA. Okay. Yeah. All right.
There you go.
Wow. Look at that thing. That looks amazing, Jay.
Yeah, it's amazingly terrible. So when I got it, so these things, Kellison made mostly fiberglass bodies, but they made a little small handful of cars with their own chassis and frame on them. And this is one of those. You can tell the difference because, like, if you look down at the other ones here on your screen, they're all jacked up in the rear. That's because Kellison said that they would fit on a Corvette chassis. They would not. They literally would not go on top of the axle kick out, so they're all driving like that.
Okay. Oh, yeah, look at that. Yeah, okay.
And this thing, I think they went down to like Ace Hardware and they got these giant C-channel frame rails. They literally didn't know how to bend metal, so every part of the frame that is bent, they like cut it and welded it at a funny angle to make an angle. It's terrible. So it's all Corvette. It's all first generation Corvette powertrain and suspension, which is, all that shit's got to go. We're 8 years into a 6-month restoration on this car, and it's any day. It's going to be spectacular.
Okay.
And are you keeping the original running gear, or are you doing something modern underneath?
The powertrain, I've still got. It's a 283 because I just like the 283, and that I wasn't willing to dump that. But I put a TKO gearbox. It has a TKO gearbox that I caused to be put in it, and all of that first generation Corvette suspension, brake, steering, all of that. There's resto mod stuff that's off the shelf, so it's all modern resto mod suspension. That stuff literally bolts in as packages, so it was not very hard to just take the Chevy stuff out, put it in the barn, and put in stuff that works.
Okay.
So any day now, it's going to be a great car. Any day now.
Yeah. How did you come across this? How did this come into your life?
So I have this bad history. Let me just say, lemons is not the only thing that I do. I have this bad history that if I stub my toe and stumble across a bag of money, I tend to spend it on dumb cars. So I had a V12 Vanquish that I finally got it so that I was driving it to work one day and there were no warning lights on it. Oh. And I was like, okay, man, like this thing works. And I said, wait a minute, my office is very close to Fantasy Junction. And if I drive it to Fantasy Junction and give it to them to sell, I'll never get more money again for this car. So I did that, right? So I dumped off this Vanquish and it sold. And literally when I was going to pick it up and pick up my giant, by not small check for this car, this dude pulled in with this car and he wanted to sell it. It's like, oh, well, I was a smart guy for a grand total of 45 seconds and now I'm an idiot again. But I felt like it was all play money anyway. So what the hell? So that's how I got it. And I thought at the time, he made it. This car's been restored a bunch of times badly. And he made it into a kind of a basically running driving car. And I bought it with the assumption, like, I'll just clean this thing up. It's going to be great. And the more I dug into it, every single thing needed to be done over. So
right.
Yeah, it's on like its fourth ground up at this point. So
okay.
There's so many of these around. Like, I almost think, like, because we had someone on the show who did something similar, who he basically just like, he had a vision for this thing and he created his own fiberglass based car. And it's this beautiful thing that I actually saw. We had him on the show because I was going to physical therapy and I saw it in the parking garage. He was a doctor.
Wow.
Yeah. His name is Ted Parks. It's called the Varsity Roadster. He's an insanely talented individual. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing that you're going to be the next owner of one of his cars.
I got to go. See you guys later.
Yeah. Disconnect.
No, it's just like a beautiful thing. And like, there's so many of these guys out there with these weird one-off fiberglass things. We should almost have like a Goodwood, like a good fiberglass.
Good plastic?
Yeah, good plastic gathering for just these weird one-offs that are just all over the place.
Yeah. Well, the trouble with that is, from my experience, very few of them will actually get to a car show. So that may be difficult. So that thing is pretty cool. Well, I've always liked Kellisons. I've known about them forever, and you do see them occasionally. They show up, and they're all in different states of disrepair.
Sure. Right.
Rich Taylor had one when years and years ago I was doing the New England 1000 pretty regularly. Rich had one that he brought one year, and it had some big block something. And that thing was just spectacular. Yeah, in fact, his came up on one of those pages that you were scrolling through. I think his came up. It's white. It's got red numbers on the side.
Okay.
And it just sold at Barrett Jackson or Southern.
There it is. Yep. The J4R Coupe.
Yeah. That's awesome looking.
Yeah. So I've always liked them, and I really had this appetite. I wanted some 50s sports racer Barchetta something, and then this thing showed up with a roof. I said, yeah, that's close enough. I'll buy that. What could possibly go wrong? So, what are you going to do?
Okay.
Bad judgment. Bad judgment is the theme of my car life.
This is a safe place. Okay, so you're not going to get vilified or criticized. This is welcoming arms for sure.
I appreciate that. I need it.
Yeah, this podcast is one part automotive culture, one part therapy. So if there's anything you need to work out, it's perfectly fine.
It's exactly what I need. It's exactly what I need.
Yeah. So, real quick before we get off of this topic, when you go back to San Francisco, can you just mail me like just a shit ton of Bob's Donuts apple fritters, please?
Absolutely. I would suggest FedEx.
Okay. Oh God, I miss them so much. Yeah, greatest apple fritter ever. Yeah. Bob's, right?
Does this speak to a Bay Area history?
No. My wife and I did a visit to San Francisco before the pandemic, and we had a great time. And Bob, anytime I go to a city, I seek out carbs and Bob's Donuts, of course. Yeah. So how could you go wrong with Bob's, right?
Happy to help you out. Happy to help.
Appreciate it. Yeah. No. Yeah. So sorry for the carb, non sequitur there. Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah.
That's why cars were invented, to go get donuts.
That's right.
That was the whole reason. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, Carl Benz just needed a fritter. That's all it was. So I do want. So we kind of have twin poles, like Dave was saying on the show, where we talk about, we do our dumb dick jokes with the FMK cars, and then we disappear up our own butts with some navel gazing. So we're gonna do the latter now. So I've been thinking a lot about how 24 Hours of Lemons has this like kind of interesting place in car culture. And I brought it up to you before we started recording, and you said it has no place in car culture. Don't think that's true. But like the kind of like irreverent sort of energy to it is more pervasive, certainly now, than it was in 2006, right? With weird car Twitter, kind of online journalism, even Radwood, I think, owes a certain amount of debt to 24 Hours of Lemons. So how are you feeling about its place and its sort of legacy in car culture and how it moved
I think it's great. And honestly, I think Radwood does sort of have not a debt, but I mean, has a tie to 24 Hours of Lemons, not for the reasons you think, but just directly those guys. And they've said this to me, is the only reason I'm saying this. They sort of got together and started really working as a group by building a Lemons team in 2007. That was sort of the first thing that they did. They're actually mostly Santa Cruz guys, as coincidentally enough. And they've gone on to do these really great things. They really have great stuff going. So I think there have been some spin-offs like that. And I do really think Lemons has caused a lot of people to get together and start being friends and sometimes working together that probably wouldn't have happened otherwise. I don't know how much, as media became more accessible to more people, I think that irreverence was going to happen no matter what. I mean, we sort of got there early because I had access to a lot of big media, because that's the space. That's the career I was in for many, many years before that. I was in the car magazine business. So I was able to do on ink and paper just through who my friends were. They were all car magazine guys. I was able to do what anybody can do now with a Twitter account. So it was kind of a fluke that Lemons popped up. But I think what really, you want to talk navel gazing, I mean, the car hobby, and let's be clear, this is a hobby. People will tell you, wow, this is a critical business and it is an industry and we are preserving history. It's a hobby. It's something that people feel passionate about, and they're doing it. And if they can make a living at it, great. But they're doing it because, they're enthusiastic about it. And I think by the turn of the 21st century, it was taking itself so seriously, so painfully, self-reflectively seriously. And there's just this hagiography of, here's the 10 awesome dudes that you have to respect, and here's the 10 cars that define. It's like, fuck that. People were just sick of that. And I just think that we all felt it. And because I was in the car magazine business, were able earlier than a lot of other people to just go out to the world and say, like, it's just cars. I mean, we're just having fun with these stupid inanimate objects. That's all this is. Let's not be so pleased with ourselves. But that was, already even Pebble Beach, about the time we started doing our deal, Pebble Beach was starting to do like a hot rod class and stuff like that. So the hobby was just at a place where it had gone all the way off in this very formula, serious, self-aggrandized direction. And it was just people had an appetite to go the other way. That's all.
Right.
I I can't take credit for it. We just happened to be there, you know?
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I mean, I think it's still it's just interesting to see the first person there and then like kind of how it evolves.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to soft pedal. I mean, I think we're good at it. Everybody involved on our side. I mean, we're good writers, honestly. I think we all come from many, years or decades of experience. We kind of know what we're doing. And I think that we like the idea that people who were excluded from something that they wanted to do can be included now. And that's pretty motivating. It's pretty rewarding, and that doesn't get old. So you keep doing that. There's always a new guy who never thought he could get in a race car, who 99% of car fans dreamed about getting in a race car, and 1% ever did it. So that's a pretty easy herd to keep going back and go, hey guys, like, actually you can do this. You don't have to worry about some dork and pelotes, you don't have to worry about bumping some guy's GT3 Porsche. You can actually just do this. So we are good at that, I have to say.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like the makeup of Lemon's current day, like, is absolutely a reflection of just years and years and years of bringing that like organic accessibility up for everyone, right? Yeah, open door.
Well, and I really feel like the Pelote guy with the GT3, he doesn't need us. I mean, he's got lots of other places to go. That exists for that guy, and that should, and welcome him with open arms and let him do what he wants. He doesn't need to be down here with us. This is for everybody else. And it's really, I was just having a conversation earlier today on another podcast about this very thing, that a lot of those guys, the GT3 guys, that most enthusiasts never started racing because they didn't want to have to deal with that guy. And the thing that they really are afraid of dealing with is that GT3 guy. And I am singling those guys out, and some of them are good guys and some aren't, but that kind of guy, he just doesn't appreciate that everybody's experience matters. He thinks only his experience matters. And a lot of racing is, my experience is the only one that matters, and if I don't get what I want, it was a fucking terrible weekend. And that's the attitude that 99% of car enthusiasts stayed away from the racetrack to avoid. All you really got to do is just make sure those guys stay in their 1% where they're happy, or they're happy being unhappy. And everybody else can just go and have a normal, fun time. Is that philosophical?
No. Yeah. And I think that actually is, I mean, obviously, like a lot more succinct way of putting what I was trying to get at. I think
I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah. And yeah, I can tell. But like that through line is the accessibility, right? That's what kind of pervades like weird car Twitter and sort of, the more democratic media and all that is you're right, just the accessibility. It's pretty simple.
It's absolutely against that, like, well, this is the way it was always done, so this is the way we're going to continue doing it, right? That just like that old school, very single mindset, right? This is just not just what car culture needs, but what culture needs in general, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think it's just the natural evolution as more and more people can kind of voice their opinion. They don't have to take the received wisdom. It's just kind of the natural evolution of this is, the received wisdom is not really serving me, and I want to do something else. So it's so much more fun now than 20 years ago. I mean, I love a 6C 1750 Alpha, but you know what? I don't need to see another one. Like, I've seen the same 3 40 times. Like, I don't need to see that anymore. But once you open the doors up and there's some dude who, I was just looking at one of the videos, we do these wrap up videos for every race. I was just looking at the edit of one of them earlier today, and some dudes in Connecticut, they took a Saab turbo motor out of their 300ZX race car, and which they had put into their 300ZX and said, well, this isn't weird enough. I think they won a race with that thing. They took a lot of that stuff and grafted it under an early 60s Ford Falcon sedan body, and now that's their race car. Well, I've never seen that before. I've seen a 60 1750, never seen that before. So that's one of the things that I like too. You get to see that. And 20 years ago, like, somebody could have built that car, but it never would have made a magazine, and you would never have known that it was out there. And now, if you want to, you're going to see that on 80 different Instagram feeds. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and people were doing that, right? Like there were people doing that stuff. It wasn't like, you gave people permission to do it. It was just
no, exactly.
They just brought it into your forum, right?
Yeah. Well, it's almost. I mean, that's 100% right. It's not like we gave them permission, but we did kind of give them a reason. I mean, we set up this straw man. So I think it inspires some of that. But no, you're right. I mean, the mentally ill fabricator has always been around, but he was just known locally as the weirdo dude, with the Saab powered Ford in the neighborhood otherwise. So now he can be a star.
I need to meet these people. Yeah. Saab love runs deep on this show for sure. So yeah.
We're both former idiots and Saab owners.
Yep. So. You're recovering Saab owners. Is
three deep for me and one for Ian. But no, that's fantastic. No, I love it. Just the fact that, like, when you're looking at, like, just like the spectrum of entry cars, right? Like, kind of like, just like, like the stuff that, like, really jumps out at you is, like, just like the lunacy, right? Like, like, you've managed to do what with what? Like, right? Yeah, no, I enjoy that. Yeah, that's great. I've, like, the fact that, like, so Lemons has been going, like, pretty strong since 2006, right? It's really, like, the online accessibility, the internet culture, people being able to rent seats, like, all this stuff seems to be hitting, like, an awesome stride, right? I've crewed at a Lemons race. Ian has raced in one. We had a fantastic time. And, like, talk to us about, like, where you might want to see it go, like how you see it kind of evolving in the future, right?
I wish I could, but I don't really know. I think certainly there's a lot of people that would have fun doing this, and that in the abstract probably think about it, and I think they know about it. I'm not really sure what's keeping them from doing it, and I'm a little curious about that. And it's obviously it's some combination of a lot of different factors. But I'm a little curious about that. Honestly, I can't take a lot of credit for what Lemons is at this point. It really has just evolved on its own. I mean, this was a one-time party that I threw for some friends in 2006, and it immediately took on a life of its own. And I just kept like, okay, you guys just go keep doing that. I can't really claim a whole lot of direction of the thing, and particularly not anymore. I've got, there's Nick and Eric are really running the thing, and Kim Harmon is running the thing, and I, like, show up on a phone call every day and, like, how quickly can we end this, guys? Because, I've got other stuff going on. So I can't tell you. I don't really know. And I don't know that anybody knows. Honestly, I also think this is the kind of thing where it doesn't want to be controlled from above.
Right. Okay. Right. Yeah.
I think there's 5,000 people who race in a Lemons race in America alone every year, and they are making way more decisions and statements than we ever could. And I think it's mostly about make sure they don't kill themselves, and make sure that if somebody else is sort of giving them a hard time, that you kick that guy out. It's sort of that easy. Other than that, it just does its own thing.
I love it. Yeah, no, like setting up the mechanisms for this space to continue to exist, right?
Yeah.
I think, and the only other, I think, real serious thing we wanted to ask you about was COVID and trying to balance the everything that we've been talking about so far with something that is sort of serious and a bummer.
Well, I mean, that I have been very deeply involved, and I kind of felt like, well, somebody has to take responsibility for this, and if it's not me, I don't know who the hell that's like. I'm not going to make that somebody else's problem. So yeah, that's been really tough. Obviously, a lot of people have had much worse things coming out of COVID than us. We're all healthy. We all kept our jobs. We all kept our houses. So we got off pretty light, but it has been a tremendous amount of work. And, running a business is about predicting the future and planning for the future. And this has just been this incredibly unpredictable. For the first 6 months, and I talked to other people who run businesses, we have these sort of circles. And for the first 6 months, we were all saying like, okay, in 3 weeks, we're finally going to know, and it like never happened. Still hasn't happened. So I think we all just stopped. Finally, we got over that fantasy that you can even predict this. It's been largely reactive. And our approach for Lemons was pretty simple. It's first you like completely flip out like everybody else is like, what the hell is this going to be? But then pretty quickly you can say, well, if we're dark for a year, I know what that's going to cost. Can we afford that? Yeah. I mean, nobody's going to like that, but we can do that. Then all of a sudden it starts to get pretty calm. It's like, okay, now we're going to have these people. If they can't do what we do, what else can we do? And then you just kind of work through that problem. So that was the internal side. And on the external side, eventually you find the doctor, epidemiologist guy or guys in our case, who in a pretty rational way can say, in an environment where these numbers are at this level with these protocols, it's reasonable to operate. And if you can't do those protocols, or if you don't have those numbers in the environment, it's not reasonable. And then you just do it. I mean, it's kind of that. It sounds easy. It took us a really, really long time to figure it out. And it changes all the time. And there's a lot of infrastructure in the background that you got to put into place. But we're lucky because it's just really like the 3 or 4 of us. And it's not like we had 800 people that had to make a salary every day. So when we're that small and we don't have a factory and we don't have a supply chain, it's a real easy business to just say like, well, let me do the math and okay, we'll figure it out. So we got off pretty lucky, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I was wondering too, like about the parallels of that learning curve because it's essentially just like a risk calculation, right? And
all of racing is. I mean, being on the operational side of racing is 100% risk management. I mean, that's all it is.
Right, and I imagine that figuring this risk calculation out is a pretty similar curve to a new racing team trying to figure out how to make their car not kill them.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, it is in the sense that you would think, and I certainly thought this. I mean, I come from a racing background. I come from this magazine background. I certainly thought going into this thing after, let's say it's 2008, and you realize like, well, people aren't going to let me stop doing this, so I got to kind of figure out what I'm doing here. I thought at that point, well, surely the car racing industry, it's driven by insurance. Insurance is driven by data. Surely all I have to do is get the data, and that'll tell me what's dangerous, what isn't. What do I, if I'm going to be responsible, what do I need to do? Well, that's just wrong. The insurers do not share that data in any kind of meaningful way. And if you go and you say, hey, somebody must know, is the big exposure here fuel lane? Is it paddock? Is it racetrack? That's got to be out there. That's got to be something somebody knows. Nobody knows. Oh. For reasons that I'm not going to speculate on. That kind of data is not really available in a reliable way. So you are figuring it out. So what I'm saying is the similarity is there in that even in the stuff that should be very predictable and you should be able to make very clear risk management decisions, you can't even on that kind of stuff. So when COVID comes along, and it is changing every 3 days. And what you think you know is invalid 3 days later, and 3 weeks after that, it's invalid again. And you're in a business where you have to start spooling up in terms of shipping stuff, getting people hired, getting insurance policies in place. That all has to start months out. But literally, you can have the COVID conditions in that environment change 6 days out. You can have a spike, and you can't go. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of racing series, they went anyway. Our decision was, well, we're going to make rules and we're going to follow them. So, we had to do that in a bunch of cases. But what are you going to do?
As like the whole reason that that we felt compelled to have you on the show was because you made a statement in one of your emails.
My winning smile.
Absolutely. Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Because you made a statement in one of your emails where you basically just said, God damn it, get vaccinated, right? Yeah. And so given that car culture is made up of so many diverse backgrounds, I could just see, Ian and I are very obviously pro-vaccination, doing the things that sane people should do, right? We're not we're not, this isn't ivermectin, right? I'm not,
and with a Fiat Abarth on a flatbed behind him,
Yeah, right. It's saying
I'm a
things.
rational human being.
That's what all rational people say, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but the fact that you made the fact that statement shouldn't be controversial, right? It's a common sense statement that's necessary in these times for the survival of so many things, including enthusiast hobbies, right?
Yeah.
And so we love that you said that. We really appreciate that because that's the kind of thing that people need, even though we know that there's probably going to be people that don't feel that way, that don't have those beliefs or whatever, So talk to us about have you had any kind of negative reception and how have you kind of navigated kind of steering that course?
Well, yeah, I mean, some subset, and it's been a very small subset.
Sure.
Some subset, of course, of people who call themselves lemon people have been sort of vocally from day one have been blowing back on, our adherence to the reality of the situation. Not the sitting on the toilet looking at Instagram reality, but the actual reality of the situation. But it's a very small minority. It is a minority that largely likes to be offended anyway, so it doesn't really matter what you're going to do, and screw them. We at Lemons have kind of always made it our job. It's what I said earlier, which is everybody's experience matters. And what I think happens a lot in racing is that if you're an organizer, you get really worried because one guy's pissed off and you bend over backward and you're trying to make this one guy happy and you forget it's a zero-sum game. You can't make one guy happy without making somebody else equally unhappy. And why are you going to chase your own tail for that? And also, why are you going to indulge this man-child who's throwing a hissy fit when it's not his or her decision? So, we just don't really. Life is too short. I mean, nobody involved in Lemons really cares. There's always going to be some guy who's pissed off. We're not very interested in unpissing him off. And frankly, having the guy who likes to be pissed off around makes everybody else's weekend worse. So honestly, if that guy wants to be in a huff, the best thing you can do is fine, be in a huff, go away.
I was going to say too that that sort of attitude of the anti-vax thing is very much the Pelosi GT3 thing, and Lemons is about
the only one that matters. Yeah,
right. And Lemons is about community, and the community thing to do is to protect those around you.
Yeah. No, I think it's really that simple. And the only other thing I would add to that is, again, I don't come from a racing background. I mean, I come from an organizational background, a business background, and a magazine background, but not racing. And I had to think long and hard after that first one. Well, I thought, geez, maybe there is a business here that I can build. And I had to think really hard about, do I want to be at 3 a.m. lying awake worrying about some guy breaking his neck? And I really had to think about that. And the deal that I made with myself was, I will do this, but within the confines of what this activity is, I am going to make it as safe as I possibly can. And that is not, it's not a moral stance. That's just, I can't deal with the anxiety of putting people at undue risk that I don't think is necessary for what we're doing. And the COVID thing was just the same way. I mean, it's the same as a Hans device or fire suppression. Nobody wanted that. Nobody wanted that shit either. And I just, a business with 10,000 customers is worth something to me, and a business with 11,000 customers and 3 of them are dead. And you've probably got a $10 million suit hanging over your head because of it. That's worth nothing to me. So it just wasn't that hard. And people are going to if you're worried about people getting pissed off, you're just in the wrong business, because people are always going to get pissed off.
Absolutely. Yeah. Heaven forbid somebody who found something have a conscience. Like, if it's going to happen, it's going to be within these confines. And that leads to talk about some of those decisions, right? Like cheap cars, slow cars, like the crashes are much safer if the cars are slower. Yeah. Kind of tell us some of that kind of
that actually turns out, that's not entirely true. I mean, that's intuitively true, right. But it's not the speed of the car. It's the speed. It's not how fast the car goes. It's how quickly the car goes to zero that hurts you. And there are a lot of tropes that don't really seem to be backed up by the evidence. For example, there is this very firmly held idea that, the worst thing you can have is differential of speed. And surely intuitively, I can see that that's a problem. I don't actually see any evidence of that. I haven't been able to find any statistical evidence. Obviously, an 8-mile-an-hour car is a problem out there. But the delta between, an 80-mile-an-hour car and a 100-mile-an-hour car doesn't really seem to be the issue that most people reflexively think it is. Obviously, the data problem that I talked about earlier, I don't really know what's going on in other series because those data aren't available. But I know from ours, we have a lot of contact and we have a lot of off-track incidents, things like that. Unfortunately, we have virtually no injuries. But very, very rarely is speed differential one of those issues. One of the other things is it is obviously a real problem when one guy sees a flag and another guy doesn't see a flag. That is obviously a gigantic issue. But knock on wood, very rarely does that differential not resolve itself very quickly. The guy who doesn't see it almost always starts to realize, oh shit, I didn't see something, and slows down. Right. So the things that you think are really big exposures turn out probably not to be the biggest exposures, and the really big exposures turn out to be really dumb things, like guy loading his ATV onto a trailer. Okay. That wipes out a lot of people. It's a lot of kind of guy drops car on self because jack stands were not properly sighted. Those things, and actually the thing that really gets a lot of people is nighttime guy driving through paddock in golf cart, not paying attention, probably has had a couple of beers. If you do look at where things happen, it's not always what people expect, which is sort of a whole nother level of 3 a.m. anxiety, because you can't, how do you guard against something you don't know? Right. But anyway, I guess I don't even know how I started on that. But a lot of the stuff that seems intuitive is not actually where the real issue is. The real issues are often these much more prosaic things.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's probably also just people have their guard down, right? Like people, they see a slow car up ahead and they're like, oh shit, there's a slow car. I have to be alert.
Right. So one of the guys who really, really was important at the beginning of this is this guy, Dan Radowitz. And he was he was very involved with CSRG, and that's where his experience running races came from. And for the first, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, Dan was our kind of our technical director. And he's a very smart guy. And when we started, I was adamant that we had to slow people down on the straights and, do these sort of intuitively sensible things. And Dan often took the view of, people actually will mostly have a healthy sense of fear. And the benefit that you might be getting by introducing a chicane here is more than offset by the confusion you cause and by the tapping and bumping that you're causing, because people are coming into it, different skill sets and things like that. And he said, I really think you're going to have fewer contacts if you just kind of ease off on stuff like that and let them themselves out. And I was very resistant to that, but he convinced me to try it. He was 100% right about that.
That's really interesting.
He wouldn't have thought that. He wouldn't have thought that. And Dan was also the one who pointed out, the issue is not the track speed. The issue is there something that someone's going to get into, and is there a hard thing that he's going to hit? Really taught all of us, because he was really the expert going into this thing. Dan really showed all of us, like, this is what you're looking for. It's like the tree at Summit Point. That's much more important. You can be going 80. If you hit that, you got a real problem. You can be going 150 down, the back straight at Thunderhill. There's nothing to hit. I mean, you might roll all the way to the road, but there's really nothing to run into. Right. So there's a lot of stuff that's kind of counterintuitive.
That's fascinating, right? Like, it just kind of speaks like more to like just an overall like homogenous like kind of like movement, like a flock of cars, like all just kind of smoothly moving, right? Like almost like fluid dynamics, right?
Yeah, no, very much so. Very much.
Yeah, no turbulence. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Right on. That's really cool. Yeah, no, stuff you never would have thought of. Yeah. No. Yeah. So.
Well, I'm finding out stuff that I never would have thought of every day. I mean, I do not want to pretend that I have all the answers here, because stuff is surprising me all the time. But it does feel like those surprises are getting more and more obscure, which is good. Right. It means maybe most of the obvious stuff has already happened, and we've thought about it a little bit more.
Yeah. So. You have been doing this since the PlayStation 3 was launched.
Exactly.
So do you want to spend $700 on a video game console or $500 on a car to race? Yeah. Right? Oh, I like that. Jay. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Ian? What do you think?
I think we did a car show.
We talked about cars a lot. Yeah.
You sound so surprised.
It doesn't always happen. To be honest, we had one a couple episodes ago. We talked about bison for a solid 20 minutes. So it happens. Jay, if people want to find out more about Lemons, or they want to get in touch with you, what should they do?
Really easy. It is 24hoursoflemons.com. My contact is on one of the pages under, I believe it's currently Worthless Old Know Nothing Coot is my title on the contact page. It's pretty accurate. But 24hoursoflemons.com, easy to find. We are on all of the grams and tubes and all that kind of stuff. And mostly, we've had a year and a half to do nothing but sit back and make dumb content. So there's a lot of stuff out there now.
Those videos, the wrap-up videos are great. Like the videos that you guys send out. Yeah, no, like I subscribe to the newsletter. It's great. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
No, those are fantastic. Always great to see. Yeah.
Well, it is fun to work on that stuff, and I'm constantly just wondering, like, what am I doing here? 56 years old. How did this happen? As I'm, editing a dude with a Saab motor and a Nissan suspension under a Ford Falcon. So nice. There you go. This is what my parents gave me an education for.
You're doing something right. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
No.
And if not, you're doing something. So
no, I think that during times like this, like these are the kinds of things that are going to help us survive like very difficult times, right? Like just some tomfoolery, like figuring out how to do this kind of stuff safely. These are the islands. These are the oases. Oasi? I don't know how to pluralize oasis. Beyond, Liam and Noel, maybe. I don't know. But but yeah, these are the kinds of things that are really going to help us get through, and we really appreciate what you're doing and how you're going about it. Right, that's the important thing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You may be overestimating my intent here, but thank you.
No, just like the rest of automotive journalism, right? Like self-deprecation's a part of it. So yeah, we recognize that. Same.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jay, and everyone else.
It was fun.
Yeah. We'll see you in person, or I'll see you in person here in about a week.
Excellent.
Everyone else, we love you. Goodbye.
All right.